Hi, good evening. Welcome to It's a Great Idea, the Rights of Students with Disabilities to Free Appropriate Public Education by FND. I'd like to welcome you here today. It is a pleasure to be before you all. Just you being here with me today makes a huge difference in the life of your child. And it's a great idea for you to be here. So just let me introduce myself. My name is Kipwana Wright. I am here under dual hats today. One, as a professional with over 20 years experience working with families with children with disabilities and children in high risk situations, and also as a parent of children with disabilities. I was not ready as a parent to accept the fact that my child had disabilities. But it wasn't until I had a conversation with another parent who was struggling with her child in school and their education, did I think maybe I needed to get my child evaluated because we were facing some similar challenges. And so after I got her evaluated and got her on the IEP, we saw a huge change for her. And so through that process, I learned how to advocate for my child. But at the end, I also had to teach my child how to advocate for herself. And so this is part of what FND is here for, to help parents, to empower parents to advocate for their children, to make sure they're receiving the best education with the least amount of restrictions, a free and appropriate public education as much as possible. And so let us continue. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization helping families across the state of Florida. We are funded in part by the United States Department of Education and the United States Department of Health. We provide information, resources, and support to families and educators just like yourself to help them understand the special education process here in Florida. The Family Network on Disabilities, or FND, is a national network for individuals of all ages who may be at risk, have disabilities, or have special needs in their families. We also serve professionals and concerned citizens. FND was founded in 1985 by a group of parents of children with disabilities who came together just looking for mutual support and an opportunity to share information. FND is a grassroots organization for persons with disabilities and their families. It is family-centered and family-driven. One of the unique things about FND is that the majority of the board members, our staff, our program managers, all have children with disabilities. So we all here have a unique understanding of special education and the process, and we're able to help you navigate as well. So let's discuss what Family Network on Disabilities and what we are not. We are just to bring clarification. We want you to understand that we are not doctors or lawyers. None of the information that is discussed here today can be considered legal or medical advice. We don't interpret the law, and we don't provide medical advice of any type. However, We are excited to be able to share with you information, resources, support for you and your family. We use research-based information in order to create our trainings, and we work in collaboration with state and federally funded organizations in order to create and provide resources for your family. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act is a national federal special education law. The purposes of this Individuals with Disabilities Education Act have their roots in the past when children with disabilities were often excluded from schools. This history can be clearly seen in findings that Congress states at the very beginning of the law, as most recently amended in 2004. Congress found that disabilities is a natural part of the human experience and is in no way diminishes the rights of individuals to participate in or contribute to society. Improving educational results for children with disabilities is an essential element of our national policy of ensuring equality of opportunity, full participation, independent living, and economic self-sufficiency for individuals with disabilities. Before the date of enactment of the Education for All Handicapped Children's Act of 1975, the educational needs of millions of children with disabilities were not being fully met because children did not receive appropriate education services. The children were excluded entirely from public education system and from being educated with their peers. Undiagnosed disabilities prevented children from having successful education experiences, or the lack of resources with public school system forced families to find services outside of the public school system. Free, appropriate public education, appropriate evaluation, individualized education plan, least restrictive environment, parent participation, and procedural safeguards are the six major principles of IDA. Those finding the foundation of the development of the six major principles of IDA, known as the pillars of Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. These six pillars are free, appropriate education, appropriate evaluation, individualized education plan, least restrictive environment, parent participation, and procedural safeguards. Today, we are going to expand on the first one of the right to students with disabilities to free public education, or FAPE. IDA was originally passed in 1975 as public law. Then it was called the Education for All Handicapped Children's Act, and was given grants to by the United States for the education of children with disabilities. Since then, it has been amended many, many times. While always maintaining its original purpose to ensure that children with disabilities have access to free and appropriate education, in 2006, August 2006, the U.S. Department of Education released final regulations for the amended IDA that was passed in 2004. The regulations officially state that the major purpose of IDA is to ensure that all children with disabilities have available to them free, appropriate public education that emphasizes special education and related services designed to meet their unique needs and prepare them for further education. Employment and independent living to ensure the rights of children with disabilities and their parents are protected, to help states, localities, educational service agencies, and federal agencies provide for the education of all children with disabilities, and to assess and ensure the effectiveness of efforts to educate children with disabilities. So, what is a free appropriate education? Free appropriate public education, or FAPE, is a term used in the federal law of IDA. It describes the right of a student with a disability to special services that will meet their needs individually and their individual learning needs at no cost to the parents. In IDA, a free appropriate public education means special education and related services that are provided to children and youth with disabilities at public expense, under public supervision and direction, and without charge, to meet the standards of the state education policy, SEA, including the requirements of IDEA. Include preschool, elementary, or secondary school education in the state involved, and provide a in keeping with the individual education program, IEP, that meets the requirements of IDA. A free appropriate education must be available to all children residing in the states between the ages of 3 and 21, including children with disabilities who have been suspended or expelled as provided in statutes 300.530D. Just a sidebar, that is very important because some places where children were being suspended uh, because of some of the issues on their IEPs, they were not receiving services. So this was an important statute that they put in place. FAPE for children beginning at age 3. And that is the early start or child find services that many children who have been born with a disability, they fall under under that statute. Each state must ensure that the obligation to make FAPE available for each eligible child residing in the state begins no later than the child's third birthday. And an IEP or an IFSP, which is an individual family support plan, is in effect for the child by the date by that date, the child's third birthday, in accordance to statute 300.323 section B. If a child's third birthday occurs during the summer, the child's IEP team shall determine the date when services under the IEP or IFSP will begin. Children advancing from grade to grade in each state must ensure that FAPE is available to any individual child with a disability who needs special education and related services, even though the child has not failed or been retained in a course or grade and is advancing from grade to grade. And that right there is something that happened to me as a parent. One of my children needed an IEP, and I was fighting for, she had an IEP and coming to the school, but because the school said she wasn't failing enough, they would not put her in an IEP on an IEP, nor would they give her modifications because she wasn't failing. And so that is very important, that our children do not have to be failing to receive services. All they have to do is have a diagnosis. Also, the determination that a child described in paragraph A of this section is eligible under this part must be made on an individual basis by a group of by the group responsible within the child's LEA for making eligibility determinations. So let's discuss these other FAPE requirements according to IDEA. Residential placement. If placement in a public or private residential program is necessary to provide special education and related services to a child with a disability, the program, including non-medical care and room and board, must be at no cost to the parents of the child. Assistive technology. Each public agency must ensure that assistive technology devices or assistive technology services, or both, as those terms are defined, are made available to the child with a disability if required as a part of the child's